Captain Alan Mason stared at the screen, his coffee growing cold beside him. The energy readings made no sense. In his 15 years aboard the U.S. Horizon, he had never seen patterns like these. "Captain, you need to see this," said Communications Officer Lily Ortiz. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Mason walked to her station. "What is it, Ortiz?" "Transmission from Proxima Centauri. It's broken up." But she played the message. Through the static, screams could be heard. Then a voice. "They are coming. They cannot be stopped. Run." Mason's stomach tightened. "Get Dr. Wallace up here now." Within minutes, Frank Wallace hurried onto the bridge. The xenolinguist looked tired, his glasses slightly crooked. "I need you to analyze this," Mason said. Wallace listened to the message 3 times. "That's not human," he said finally. "The voice sounds human, but the language patterns, whoever sent this was trying to speak our language while thinking in another." "So we're hearing a translation?" Mason asked. "No, we're hearing someone who learned English but was under extreme stress. There are sub-vocalizations in another language I've never heard before." Alarms blared suddenly. Officer Paul Jackson at the sensor station called out, "Captain, multiple objects entering the solar system. They're moving at incredible speed." Mason turned to his first officer. "Ryan, send this to Luna Base now. Priority black." On Luna Base, the World Unity Council gathered in the emergency chamber. 23 representatives from Earth's nations sat in tense silence as the message from the horizon played. President Susan Powell stood. At 62, she carried the weight of her office with quiet dignity. "Ladies and gentlemen, this confirms what our deep space probes detected last month. We are not alone, and we may soon be at war." Murmurs filled the room. Powell raised her hand for silence. "Admiral Garcia, please brief the council." Fleet Admiral Chris Garcia stepped forward. The viewport behind him showed Earth, beautiful and blue. "For decades, we have been preparing for this possibility," Garcia said. "After the Mars colony crisis of 2187, world governments secretly agreed to pool resources for deep space defense." He activated a hologram showing the solar system. "We have installations throughout our system. Most are automated. Some are manned. All have remained hidden from the public to prevent panic." A council member from Africa stood up. "You're saying we've been building a military space fleet without public knowledge?" "Yes," Garcia said simply. "And thank God we did. Our long-range probes have been tracking the Caraxians for years." "The what?" asked another member. Garcia displayed another hologram, alien ships, sleek and predatory. "The Caraxians. From what we've gathered, they've conquered 87% of the known galaxy. Their pattern is always the same: scout, infiltrate, divide, conquer, and assimilate." "And you believe they're coming here?" Powell asked. "They're already here. The energy signature Captain Mason detected was their scout ships entering our system." Back on the horizon, Mason watched as the alien vessels appeared on long-range scanners. They moved with impossible precision, their hulls reflecting no light. "Captain," said Ortiz, "we're receiving a transmission. It's directed at us specifically." "On screen," Mason ordered. The view screen flickered. A face appeared, humanoid but wrong somehow. The skin was pale blue, the eyes too large and entirely black. When it spoke, its mouth moved strangely around the English words. "People of Earth, we are the Caraxian Empire. Your world is now under our protection. Resistance is unnecessary and wasteful." Mason exchanged glances with his crew. They all knew what protection meant. "Prepare the ship for defensive maneuvers," he said quietly. "And may God help us all." As the first Caraxian scout ships moved past Neptune's orbit, they scanned Earth's system with confidence. After all, no species had ever successfully resisted the Empire. They had no idea what waited for them. Commander Diane Kelly stood tall on the bridge of the U.S. Defender. Her ship was moving to meet the Caraxian scouts near the orbit of Mars. She had been chosen for this mission because of her background in both military strategy and diplomacy. "All systems ready, Commander," said Lieutenant Eric Woods from the tactical station. Kelly nodded. "Open a channel when we're in range. Let's try talking first." The Defender approached the 3 Caraxian scout ships. They were beautiful in a strange way. Smooth, dark metal that seemed to bend light around it. No visible weapons, but Kelly wasn't fooled. No species conquered most of a galaxy without serious firepower. "We're being scanned," Woods reported. "Very deep scans. They're trying to access our computer systems." "Block them," Kelly ordered. "But don't act aggressive." The main screen lit up with the face of a Caraxian. This one had markings on its blue skin that the one from the earlier transmission lacked. "I am Zalthrak, Fleet Commander of the glorious Caraxian Empire," it said. Its voice was smoother than the first contact, but still wrong somehow. "You show courage approaching us directly." Kelly kept her face neutral. "I am Commander Diane Kelly of Earth's United Fleet. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." Zalthrak's large black eyes blinked sideways. "Peaceful? Yes, peace is what we offer. Submit to Caraxian rule, and your species will be allowed to serve a greater purpose." "We're not interested in serving," Kelly replied. "We propose mutual respect and cooperation instead." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species has barely left its cradle. Your technology is primitive. What could you possibly offer as equals?" Kelly leaned forward slightly. "Knowledge, culture, new perspectives. These have value beyond technology." "Your attempt at diplomacy is noted but unnecessary," Zalthrak said. "We have studied thousands of species. All eventually kneel before us. Some quickly and painlessly. Others." The alien gestured, and the screen split to show a view of Pluto's moon, Charon. A beam of light shot from one of the scout ships. On screen, Charon seemed to shudder, then break apart. Except it didn't. The image of the breaking moon flickered and disappeared, revealing an intact Charon, now with a massive human installation visible on its surface. "Interesting," Zalthrak said, genuine surprise in its voice for the first time. "Holographic projections, not as primitive as we thought." Kelly allowed herself a small smile. "We have a few tricks." Alarm sounded on the Defender's bridge. "Commander," Woods called out. "They're charging weapons." "Defensive pattern Delta," Kelly ordered calmly. "Deploy the reflection drones." From the Defender's launch bays, 12 small craft shot out, each piloted by a single human. They moved with incredible speed toward the Caraxian ships. Lieutenant John Ramirez led the squadron in his craft, named Lucky 7. The experimental drone fighters were equipped with quantum reflection technology, a defense system that could, for brief periods, turn an enemy's energy weapons back on themselves. The Caraxians fired. Brilliant beams of light struck toward the Defender. But the drones intercepted, their hulls glowing as they redirected the energy back toward the scout ships. One of the Caraxian vessels took a direct hit from its own weapon. Its shields flared and failed. "Impossible." Zalthrak's voice boomed over the communication channel. "No species has ever." "First time for everything," Kelly interrupted. The damaged Caraxian ship began retreating, followed by the others. "This is not over," Zalthrak said. "The full might of the Caraxian Empire will descend upon your world. What you faced today was nothing." The screen went dark as the alien ships accelerated away from Earth. Back on the Defender, Kelly turned to her science officer. "Dr. Davis, how much time do you think we have before they come back?" Patricia Davis looked up from her console, her face grim. "Based on their propulsion signatures and known Caraxian territories, 3 months, maybe less." Kelly nodded. "Then we better make those months count." The red dust of Mars swirled around lead engineer Kevin Martins as he supervised the massive mining operation. Hundreds of workers and robots dug deep into the planet's surface, extracting the rare minerals needed for Earth's defenses. We need to double production, Martinez told his team. Every hour counts now. Similar scenes played out across the solar system. On Europa, ice miners worked in the freezing cold to extract water for fuel cells. In the asteroid belt, automated rigs broke down space rocks into usable metals. Humanity had united under the threat of extinction. Back on Earth, Dr. Nancy Brown stood in her laboratory surrounded by holographic displays. The physicist had been studying the debris from the damaged Caraxian scout ship. A small piece of alien technology floated in a containment field before her. The way they manipulate gravity is fascinating, she told her assistant. They don't just use it for propulsion. It's also part of their weapon systems. Can we replicate it? Her assistant asked. Brown smiled. We can do better. We can improve it. In orbit around Earth, the honeycomb defense was taking shape. Thousands of small platforms linked together in a complex pattern that looked chaotic, but followed a precise mathematical formula. Each platform contained a mixture of weapons, shields, and the new gravity technology Dr. Brown was developing. Martinez, who had designed the system, watched from a space station as another section was completed. It looks like a mess, said Admiral Garcia, who stood beside him. That's the point, Martinez replied. Their computers won't be able to predict the pattern. They'll think it's random space junk until it's too late. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Richard Taylor worked from a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. His team had been broadcasting messages on hidden quantum channels, trying to contact any resistance against the Caraxians. Sir, we've got something, called out one of his communication specialists. It's faint, but definitely non-human and non-Caraxian. Taylor rushed over. The message was simple, coordinates, and a single word that translated roughly to friends. Meanwhile, a small Caraxian craft was detected trying to slip into the solar system near Neptune. Earth forces quickly surrounded and captured it. Inside was a single Caraxian who identified himself as Vex Moore. I wish to defect, the alien said when brought before military leaders. The Empire is not what it once was. After extensive questioning and verification, Vex Moore revealed crucial information. The Caraxians have conquered over 2,000 worlds, he explained through a translator. But never have they faced real resistance. Most species surrender after the first demonstration of power. What happens to those who don't surrender? Admiral Garcia asked. There have been none, Vex Moore replied. Until now. The news was both encouraging and terrifying. Humanity had already done what no other species had accomplished, fought back successfully. But it also meant they were in completely unknown territory. Then, 5 weeks after the first encounter, long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature entering the solar system. They're early, Garcia said, looking at the data. We expected 3 months. The Caraxian armada was enormous. 300 capital ships surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. At its center was a ship 5 times larger than the others, clearly the command vessel. All defense systems to full alert, Garcia ordered. Deploy the fleet according to pattern chaos. Earth's ships moved into positions that seemed random, following no discernible tactical logic. The Caraxian fleet, used to enemies who formed predictable defense formations, hesitated slightly. Aboard his flagship, Overlord Drezkar observed the human ships with growing irritation. They move with no strategy, he told his officers. This will be even easier than expected. How wrong he was. Overlord Drezkar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the massive vessel at the center of the Caraxian armada. His dark eyes studied the screens showing Earth and its defenders. 3 centuries of conquest had taught the Caraxians that victory was inevitable. The humans have scattered their ships like frightened prey, Drezkar told his commanders. They have no formation, no strategy. One of his officers spoke up. But they did damage one of our scout ships, Overlord. A lucky strike, Drezkar dismissed. We have 300 capital ships. They have less than 50 visible vessels. The Overlord activated the communication system. His message broadcast to every screen and speaker on Earth. "People of Earth," he began, his voice deep and confident. "I am Overlord Dreskar of the Caraxian Empire. Your brave but foolish resistance has been noted. I offer you one final opportunity to surrender and become productive servants of the Empire. Refuse, and your world will burn." In the military command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, Colonel William Foster received the message. Around him, representatives from Earth's nations waited for his response. As the highest-ranking officer present, the decision fell to him. "Should we attempt to negotiate?" asked one of the civilian leaders. Foster shook his head. "We've studied their history. They have never negotiated fairly. They only understand power." He activated the response channel. "This is Colonel William Foster of Earth's United Defense. Our answer is simple. Humanity does not kneel." On his flagship, Dreskar made a sound that his species used to express contempt. "Begin the attack. Full power to forward batteries." The Caraxian ships fired in perfect unison. Brilliant beams of energy shot toward Earth's scattered fleet. Several human ships exploded instantly, breaking apart in silent bursts of light and debris. Dreskar watched with satisfaction. "Continue firing. Target their orbital platforms next." The Caraxian weapons turned toward Earth's orbit, where thousands of small objects floated in an apparently random pattern. The honeycomb defense. The beams struck several of the platforms, which exploded spectacularly. "Victory comes easily, as always," Dreskar said. Then something strange happened. The destroyed human ships and platforms flickered, then disappeared entirely. "What is this?" Dreskar demanded. "Holographic projections, Overlord," his science officer replied, voice rising in alarm. "The real human fleet is." Before he could finish, the actual honeycomb defense activated. The seemingly random collection of space debris suddenly lit up, revealing an intricate pattern surrounding the Caraxian fleet on all sides. At the same time, Earth's real ships decloaked, appearing in strategic positions throughout the battlefield. "Impossible," Dreskar shouted. "No species has this level of cloaking technology." Lieutenant Maria Gomes led Phantom Squadron in their attack. Her small fighter craft darted between the massive Caraxian ships, targeting the weak points that Vex Moore had revealed during his debriefing. "Remember the pattern," she told her pilots. "Hit the joint between the main hull and the propulsion system. Their shields are weakest there." The human fighters moved with precision and speed that the Caraxians had never encountered. Unlike the drones they typically faced from other conquered species, these were piloted by humans willing to take risks no computer would calculate as acceptable. In her laboratory, Dr. Nancy Brown watched the battle unfold on her screens. "Activate the gravitational distortion field now," she ordered. Throughout the honeycomb defense, gravity generators came online, creating unpredictable waves of distorted spacetime. Several Caraxian ships, unable to compensate for the sudden changes in gravitational forces, collided with each other. On his flagship, Dreskar watched in stunned silence as his perfect formation broke apart in chaos. "Order a withdrawal," he finally commanded. "We must regroup and reconsider our approach." As the Caraxian fleet retreated beyond Mars, Dreskar made a decision. "Send a message to the homeworld. Tell them to prepare the planet killer. These humans will regret their defiance." On Earth, cheers erupted in command centers around the world. But Colonel Foster remained serious. "This was just the first wave," he warned. "They'll be back. And next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." The captured Caraxian ship sat in a massive hangar beneath the Arizona desert. Engineers and scientists swarmed around it like ants, taking it apart piece by piece. Every system, every component was studied and tested. "The materials are unlike anything we've seen before," Engineer Martinez told Admiral Garcia as they walked around the alien vessel. "But the principles are familiar. They're just thousands of years ahead of us." "Can we catch up?" Garcia asked. Martinez smiled. "We already are. Their technology is advanced, but it hasn't changed much in centuries. They haven't needed to innovate because no one challenged them. Elsewhere in the complex, Major Samuel Turner prepared his team for a dangerous mission. 6 men and women stood before him, each chosen for their unique skills. "This is strictly volunteer," Turner told them. "We're going behind enemy lines to infiltrate a Caraxian command ship hiding in the Kuiper Belt. According to our defector Vexmore, we can access their network and locate the worlds they've conquered near our system." All 6 immediately stepped forward. No one backed down. "We leave in 6 hours," Turner said. "Get your affairs in order." Using a small craft built with salvaged Caraxian technology, Turner's team slipped past the enemy patrols. Their ship's signature perfectly matched that of Caraxian scout vessels. "Approaching target," said pilot Jeff Norris, his hand steady on the controls. "They haven't detected us yet." The command ship was massive, easily 5 times the size of Earth's largest vessel. Turner's team attached their craft to a maintenance hatch and cut their way inside. Moving silently through the ship's corridors, they followed the path Vexmore had described. 2 team members had to kill Caraxian guards, using sound-suppressed weapons designed specifically for alien physiology. Finally, they'd reached the central data hub. Communications specialist Grace Carter plugged a device into the alien computer system. "I'm in," she said after several tense minutes, "downloading their star charts and communication logs now." Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Taylor worked around the clock to establish contact with potential allies. The coordinates provided by the mysterious message had led to a hidden resistance movement spanning 3 star systems. "We are the last free Nelvarians," their leader told Taylor through the quantum communication channel. "We have hidden from the Caraxians for generations, watching as they conquered our neighbors. Will you fight with us?" Taylor asked. "We have never dared before," the alien replied. "But if humans have found a way to resist, perhaps it is time we emerged from hiding." In her laboratory, Dr. Brown collaborated with engineer Martinez on their most ambitious project yet. The captured Caraxian drive technology was being adapted into something new. "If this works," Brown explained to President Powell during an inspection, "we can create a propulsion system that will allow us to reach nearby stars in days instead of centuries." "How close are you?" Powell asked. Martinez pointed to a massive engine being assembled behind a protective barrier. "The U.S. Liberty will be ready for its first test flight next week." Turner's team returned safely, bringing with them the most valuable intelligence humanity had yet obtained. The locations of 27 worlds under Caraxian control and the coordinates of possible allies beyond their territory. Captain Lisa Johnson was selected to command the Liberty on its historic mission. At 35, she had distinguished herself during the recent battle with her tactical brilliance. "Your mission is to contact these potential allies," Admiral Garcia told her during the briefing. "We need all the help we can get before the Caraxians return with their planet killer." As the Liberty prepared for launch, intelligence reports from the outer solar system brought troubling news. The Caraxian reinforcements were gathering in greater numbers than expected. "We can't wait for them to attack again," Garcia told the World Defense Council. "This time, we take the fight to them." President Powell nodded. "Approved. When can we launch?" "As soon as the Liberty confirms there are allies willing to join us," Garcia replied. "We'll need every ship we can get." The U.S. Liberty emerged from its first faster-than-light jump with a slight shudder. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Johnson steadied herself against her command chair. "Position confirmed," reported navigator Alex Rivera. "We've arrived at the coordinates of the Neridian homeworld." Johnson looked at the view screen. A beautiful blue-green planet hung in space before them, surrounded by a network of artificial structures unlike anything humans had built. "Open a channel using the translation protocols Ambassador Taylor provided," Johnson ordered. Within hours, the Liberty was surrounded by Neridian vessels. Unlike the aggressive Caraxians, the Neridians approached cautiously. Their ships were smaller but moved with remarkable grace. "Captain, we're being hailed," Communications Officer Ben Ward announced. The face that appeared on screen was avian in nature, with feathered crests and a sharp beak. "I am High Commander Creel of the Neridian Defense Force," the alien said through the translator. "Your arrival was foretold by our seers." Johnson raised an eyebrow, but maintained her diplomatic composure. "I bring greetings from Earth. We seek allies against the Caraxian Empire." "The oppressors?" Creel nodded. "We have hidden from them for generations, using technology that bends light around our entire star system." Over the next 2 weeks, the Liberty visited 2 more worlds: the volcanic home of the silicon-based Voltar and the ocean planet of the amphibious Axioni. Both species had developed unique technologies to hide from or defend against the Caraxians. When the Liberty returned to Earth, it brought representatives from all 3 species and news that changed the course of the war. "They all agreed to join us," Johnson reported to Admiral Garcia and President Powell. "The Neridians have stealth technology beyond anything we've developed. The Voltar can create weapons that function inside star coronas, and the Axioni understand Caraxian biology better than anyone." "How?" Powell asked. "They've been studying Caraxian prisoners for centuries," Johnson explained. "They discovered something critical. Caraxians have a biological weakness to a specific frequency of radiation that doesn't harm humans or our new allies." Meanwhile, Major Turner's covert team, now embedded in Caraxian territory, continued sending valuable intelligence. "The Caraxians are building their planet killer at the shipyards in Proxima Centauri," Turner reported through a secure quantum channel. "It will be operational in 17 days. The Allied fleet gathered near Jupiter, hidden from Caraxian sensors by Neridian cloaking technology. Over 300 ships from 4 species prepared for humanity's most daring move yet. This is our only chance," Admiral Garcia told the assembled captains via holographic conference. "We strike their shipyards, destroy the planet killer before it's complete, and retreat. We can't win a prolonged war yet, but we can buy ourselves time." The attack began at 400 Earth time. The combined fleet jumped into the Proxima Centauri system, immediately opening fire on the massive shipyards. The Caraxians, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to mount a defense. Human ships targeted the partially built planet killer, while Neridian vessels disabled the shipyard's defenses. Voltar cruisers destroyed the Caraxian supply lines, and Axioni specialists jammed their communications. From his flagship, Admiral Garcia watched as the planet killer erupted in a series of explosions. Target destroyed. All ships begin withdrawal sequence. But before the Allied fleet could retreat, a massive Caraxian vessel, unlike any they had seen before, appeared at the edge of the system. "New contact," called out Sensor Officer Harry Pottle. Sir, it's at least 3 times larger than anything we've encountered." On the main view screen, the enormous ship moved toward them with terrifying speed. A transmission came through on all channels. "I am Emperor Carvex," a deep voice announced. "You have destroyed a construction that took decades to build. For this, your worlds will not merely be conquered, they will be erased from existence." As the Emperor's flagship approached, Garcia made a quick decision. "All forces, regroup at the predetermined coordinates. We just found something more valuable than destroying the planet killer." "What's that, sir?" his first officer asked. "The location of the Caraxian homeworld," Garcia answered, pointing to the trajectory of the Emperor's ship. "He came directly from it. And now we know exactly where it is." The combined fleet of human and allied ships gathered at the edge of the Caraxian home system. Over 500 vessels, representing 4 different species, prepared for the final battle. At the center of the formation was the U.S. Liberty, now modified into a delivery system for Dr. Brown's radiation emitter. Captain Alan Mason, who had first detected the Caraxian scouts months ago, stood on the Liberty's bridge. He had volunteered to lead this mission because he believed it should end as it began, with him. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Ortiz, who had requested transfer to serve under Mason again. "Send the signal to Admiral Garcia," Mason ordered. Operation Endgame is go. The Allied fleet jumped into the Caraxian system in perfect formation. Before them hung a massive blue-green world surrounded by orbital defenses and hundreds of Caraxian warships. They were expecting us, Dr. Frank Wallace noted from his station. He had joined the mission to help with any last-minute translation issues. Good, Mason replied. That means the Emperor is home. The battle erupted immediately. Caraxian ships launched toward the invaders, weapons blazing. The Allied fleet broke into predetermined groups, each with specific targets. From the command ship near Earth, Admiral Garcia watched the battle unfold through quantum communications. All units, execute your assignments. Liberty Team, stand by for your opening. The fighting was fierce. Dozens of Allied ships exploded under Caraxian fire, but the combined technologies of 4 species caused unexpected problems for the defenders. Neridian stealth ships appeared and disappeared, striking from nowhere. Voltor cruisers launched weapons that passed straight through Caraxian shields. Axioni vessels released specialized compounds that clouded Caraxian sensors. And the humans, they did what they had always done best. They adapted, improvised, and refused to give up. In the midst of the chaos, Mason saw their opportunity. There, he said, pointing to a break in the Caraxian formation. That's our path to the Emperor's flagship. The Liberty accelerated forward, taking heavy fire. Warning alarms blared as systems failed across the ship. Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, reported the damage control officer. Shields failing. Mason gripped his chair. Stay on course. All power to engines. The Liberty streaked past the defensive screen, aiming directly for the massive flagship at the heart of the Caraxian formation. On the view screen, Mason could see the enormous vessel, easily 10 times the size of the Liberty. Radiation emitter status, Mason asked. Charged and ready, Dr. Brown replied from engineering. But we need to get closer, within 5 kilometers of their command center. The Liberty shuddered as another hit struck them. Life support failing. Someone called out. 2 minutes of oxygen remaining. Mason looked at his crew. They all knew this was likely a one-way trip. It's been an honor, he said simply. As the Liberty approached the Emperor's flagship, Caraxian point defenses tore into the human vessel. Pieces of the ship broke away, trailing fire in the vacuum of space. 5 kilometers, Ortiz announced. We're in range. Activate the emitter, Mason ordered. Dr. Brown pressed the activation sequence. The device powered up, sending out waves of radiation at precisely the frequency that affected Caraxian biology. On the Emperor's flagship, Carvex clutched his head in sudden agony as the radiation penetrated the vessel's shields. All around him, Caraxian officers collapsed. The Liberty, its mission complete, broke apart as the last of its systems failed. Throughout the galaxy, the effects rippled outward. As news of the Emperor's defeat spread, subjugated worlds rose up against their weakened oppressors. The Caraxian Empire, built over 3 centuries, collapsed in less than 3 weeks. 1 month later, representatives from over 50 species gathered on neutral ground to form a new galactic council. Among them stood Ambassador Taylor, President Powell, and Admiral Garcia. In honor of those who gave their lives, Powell said during the opening ceremony, "We propose the first act of this council be to establish a memorial on every homeworld." As the sun set on the first day of the new era, Admiral Garcia stood alone, looking up at the stars. They believed they were unstoppable, he said softly. That was their first mistake. Behind him, a voice replied, and their last. Garcia turned to see President Powell joining him. Together, they watched ships from dozens of allied species passing peacefully through the night sky, proof that humanity had not just survived. They had changed the galaxy forever.